So I've been learning Blender for almost 3 months now, and thought I, a complete beginner, could 3D animate a scene from the series Dandadan in just 1 week. If you're unfamiliar with what Dandadan is, it's just an anime that has been getting a lot of attraction lately, and one that I also have happened to watch the first season of the anime for. I decided to try and create my own scene with one of the characters, Ken Takakuru, or better known as Okuran, in the show, and more specifically, how he looks when he transforms. With that in mind, let's start creating the character. I have been practicing my modeling skills for a little bit now, and have invested the most time into it in my Blender journey thus far. But I still got a long ways to go, like the facial proportions. Luckily though, the character I'm creating has a mask that covers the majority of the face, so I reused one of my previous characters I had created and just touched up the eyes and the body proportions to match the character more. Then moving on to actually creating the mask. It was a bit tricky at first, but as I worked through it, it became much simpler. I first used a plane and attached it to his face, then extruded the plane to get the overall shape. I then used a multi-resolution modifier so I could create finer details on the mask, like the teeth. The reason I used a multi-resolution modifier instead of just applying, say, a subdivision surface modifier is because I want to create finer details but still be able to animate it. With the multi-resolution modifier, I'm able to keep the low vertex count, meaning it's able to be animated. Because when you have high vertices, it becomes almost impossible to animate, as the animation needs to move each vertex. So now moving on to the hair. It wasn't too hard, just a bit tedious, and also the clothes were relatively easy. But overall, I think everything I modeled came out decent, so I moved on to painting everything to bring it all together. And with that final touch, I have finished my character, and it wasn't too bad. It came out honestly better than I had initially expected, and this all took about a day. After finishing the character, we move on to rigging, which is the process of adding bones so we can then animate the character. This was just a simple process of using the built-in Blender rig, as I felt if I took the time to create my own rig, it might take too long, and I wouldn't have had enough time to finish my own scenes. So, with the rig and character done in about 2 days total, I can start animating my scenes. The overall idea I had in mind for this animation was to have Okuran in front of his school, and Momo Ayase, which is a friend of his, calls Okuran for help. So he then transforms and rushes over to save her. And with that in mind, I started to animate. And from the time I've spent learning 3D animation, I'm still a complete beginner. And my animations look very 3D animation-like, if that makes sense. In other words, not really fluid and realistic looking movements. But I'm still learning, so I cut myself some slack. After about a day or so, I got most of my animations finished. So, with 4 days left, I still have much work to do. On day 4, I started to create my environments, which is one of the biggest issues I have right now, because I really have spent no time learning how to make good and realistic looking environments. So I had to play around with a lot of different assets and creating some materials just to get the environments to look okay. But there was one major issue. I needed to create a groundbreaking simulation, which I have never done before. So using trusty old YouTube, I was able to create a decent simulation of the groundbreaking, which involved using rigid body physics. And it actually wasn't as hard as I thought it'd be, so that was nice. With about another days of work, I finished most of the environments for the scenes. Now, with just 2 days left, I have to bring all the rendered videos into After Effects for compositing and effects, which I think might just take the longest. So after many hours of work in the final 2 days, I hope you enjoy the final animation.